For generations, humanity has searched the heavens not only for stars, planets, or galaxies, but for something different, something that might prove we are not alone. Our machines, Voyager, Hubble, and now the James Webb Space Telescope have been launched into the cosmos to peel back the veil of darkness and reveal truths hidden for billions of years. These tools were designed to look deeper than human eyes could ever see, to trace the birth of stars, map the distant glow of galaxies, and perhaps find hints of life. Yet what Webb has uncovered in recent months may be more than a hint. It may be a signal. And worse still, it may be alive. The story begins with an object known as 3I Atlas, the third confirmed interstellar body to enter our solar system. At first glance, it seemed to be nothing more than another cosmic rock, a relic flung through the void like Oumuamua and Borisov before it. But as astronomers studied it more carefully, doubts emerged. This was not behaving like an inert comet or asteroid. 3I Atlas was not merely glowing, it was pulsing. Its light shifted with uncanny precision, repeating at intervals too regular to be dismissed as chance. To some, it looked like a heartbeat, to others, a code. Natural phenomena rarely show such strict order, and this one was impossible to ignore. The James Webb Space Telescope, built to probe the very edges of the observable universe, detected something profoundly unsettling. When Webb's infrared sensors measured 3I Atlas, they found it was not simply reflecting sunlight as an icy body should. Instead, it was producing heat from within. A faint but rhythmic thermal signature emanated from its core, steady and consistent. Natural bodies in space radiate heat chaotically. Comets vent gases unpredictably. Asteroids remain frozen and inert. But this was different. This was central, focused, deliberate. The signature did not belong to stone or ice. It belonged to something active. Teams at NASA and the European Southern Observatory pored over the data. Again and again the same rhythm appeared. Pulses of energy rising and falling in regular sequence. To cross-check, researchers compared it to every known astrophysical phenomenon. Pulsars, quasars, neutron stars, all of them produce energy in rhythmic bursts, but none matched the cadence of 3I Atlas. It wasn't chaotic, nor was it faint background noise. It was precise. Then came the photometric analysis, and with it a revelation. The light spectrum coming from 3I Atlas was not scattered as one would expect from dust and ice. It was narrow, confined, and emitted at very specific wavelengths. These were the kinds of bands humans use in communication technology, in lasers, in satellites, in spacecraft transmissions. The comparison was impossible to ignore. The universe does not casually tune itself to these kinds of frequencies. Someone, or something, was doing it deliberately. Scientists began applying signal analysis methods normally reserved for radio astronomy. Fourier transforms and pattern filters stripped away static and distortion, and buried in the data, they found what looked like structure. The intervals between pulses were too exact. This was no random flare. It was too consistent, like a message hidden within noise. Some theorized it was a beacon. Others thought it was telemetry, information being relayed back to another source. Whatever it was, it had remained constant since the moment Webb first locked on to 3I Atlas. The signal did not fade, it did not warp under cosmic radiation, and it did not change with time. Whatever was generating it wanted to be noticed, or perhaps was determined to continue listening. Then the situation escalated dramatically. Without warning, 3I Atlas erupted in light. Its brightness surged by nearly 40% in under 2 minutes. No natural object behaves with that kind of sudden precision. Thermal scans revealed its entire body heating simultaneously, as though a switch had been flipped. The only analogy astronomers could find was that of a machine powering up. Even more troubling was what came next. 3I Atlas's path, which until then had followed the natural curve dictated by gravity, shifted. At first, it was only a fraction of a degree, but then came undeniable corrections. The object adjusted itself. Its trajectory no longer followed the predictable arc of orbital mechanics. Instead, it steered into a new path, aligned with the inner planets. Not directly at Earth, but close enough to raise alarm. The maneuver was exact, controlled, and purposeful. Something within 3I Atlas had woken, and it was now guiding itself. At the European Southern Observatory, researchers applied spectral decomposition algorithms normally used to identify organic molecules in exoplanet atmospheres. What they found was even stranger. Within the energy signatures of 3I Atlas's emissions were fluctuations that echoed biological rhythms. Not DNA or proteins, but resonance frequencies reminiscent of cellular activity. In other words, the light was behaving in ways consistent with living tissue. If this was correct, two possibilities remained. Either 3I Atlas itself contained life, or it was carrying something alive. The idea that it was mimicking organic patterns by coincidence stretched credibility. Natural phenomena do not imitate biology so convincingly. The alternative was almost too overwhelming to consider. But then, just as abruptly as it had brightened, 3I Atlas dimmed. Its thermal output fell. The emissions weakened. The signal lost intensity. To some, it appeared to shut down, or at least to switch into a new mode. Yet even in this muted state, 3I Atlas did not drift. It did not slow or wobble. Its course remained precise, its trajectory unbroken. Scientists described it as a heartbeat pausing mid-breath. Was it hiding from us, reacting to being observed, or was this simply part of a routine too far beyond our comprehension? One chilling thought began to circulate among astronomers. What if this was not the first time a civilization had detected it? What if every time 3I Atlas was noticed, it went into this mode, suppressing its emissions as a form of camouflage? That possibility raised disturbing questions. How many times had it passed unnoticed? How many others might have observed it before us? And was this silence meant to protect it or us? The silence, however, did not mean inactivity. Earth's own systems began to react in subtle but undeniable ways. Magnetometers monitoring the South Atlantic anomaly, the weakest part of Earth's magnetic field, normally a silent shield protecting us from solar wind and cosmic radiation, began to shudder with faint but undeniable ripples. These oscillations coincided with 3I Atlas's subtle trajectory adjustments, as if each maneuver in deep space left an echo imprinted on our planet's invisible armor. At first, scientists thought they were observing ordinary solar interference, brief disruptions from flares or geomagnetic storms, but cross-checks with solar observatories showed the sun was quiet during these events. No coronal mass ejections, no gamma bursts, nothing from our star could explain the pulses. The only correlation was 3I Atlas itself. The ripples were electromagnetic pulses, and they were timed perfectly with the object's movements. Each time 3I Atlas altered its path, Earth's magnetosphere quivered in response, as though tethered to it by an unseen thread. This phenomenon had no precedent. Comets and asteroids pass by Earth frequently, some on trajectories much closer than 3I Atlas, and yet not one has ever induced such synchronized reactions. Something far more deliberate was happening. It was not nature brushing against us, it was contact. Something across the void was reaching into our planetary environment and leaving fingerprints in its wake. The implications shook the scientific community. 3I Atlas could no longer be explained as a passive fragment of interstellar rock. It was active. It was capable of interaction. And as researchers dug deeper into the data, one conclusion became harder to avoid. 3i Atlas was not merely carrying technology, it was technology, a machine, a construct, an entity that operated not by chance, but by design. The unsettling question was what kind of design, and by whom? This realization opened a more radical theory. For decades, humanity has assumed life arises from carbon, water, and complex organic chemistry. But what if that assumption is too narrow? What if consciousness in other parts of the galaxy does not emerge from neurons and proteins, but from fields of plasma, electromagnetic lattices, or engineered matter that has grown more complex over millions of years? 3i Atlas may not be a spacecraft carrying passengers. It may not even be a probe reporting back to a civilization. It might be the civilization, a life form in its own right, alien not only in origin, but in definition. In this framework, 3i Atlas would be a native of the interstellar void, born in the darkness between stars, evolving along cycles and timescales humans can barely conceive. As more observatories tracked the object, evidence continued to accumulate that defied conventional physics. Gravitational lensing, the bending of light around massive bodies, revealed distortions near 3i Atlas. But when scientists calculated its mass, the numbers did not align. The curvature of space-time around the object was stronger than its mass could explain. Typically, only collapsed stars, black holes, create such dramatic effects. Yet 3i Atlas was far too small, no larger than a minor moon. The only plausible explanation was manipulation. 3i Atlas was shaping gravity itself, not as brute force propulsion, but as subtle guidance, adjusting its course by altering the very medium of space-time. Some theorists likened it to a submarine in an ocean, shifting ballast to glide silently through unseen currents. If true, then 3i Atlas was not just advanced engineering, it was mastery of the universe's most elusive force, a level of physics far beyond human imagination. The revelations did not stop there. In a moment that silenced even the most skeptical voices, a fragment detached from 3i Atlas and drifted in its wake. At first it seemed ordinary, the kind of debris commonly shed by comets. But when Webb trained its instruments on the shard, reality shifted again. This was not natural rock. Its geometry was too exact, smooth planes, sharp edges, and angles that aligned in ways nature does not produce. It was symmetrical, structured. It was manufactured. More unnerving still, it radiated nothing. The shard emitted no detectable heat, no radiation, no signal. It absorbed light but reflected none back. It existed almost like a void within itself, invisible to all but the most sensitive instruments. And yet it was there, composed of alloys unknown to science and atomic signatures absent from Earth and all known meteorites. This was not cosmic dust. It was a fragment of something engineered, perhaps a panel, a casing, or even a tool. The anomaly deepened when astronomers studied 3i Atlas's spin. Natural elongated bodies tumble chaotically, their rotation dictated by random impacts and uneven mass distribution. 3i Atlas rotated, but with uncanny regularity. Its intervals matched precise mathematical constants, pi, the golden ratio, even prime number sequences. These numbers are universal, recognizable across any culture or species capable of mathematics. Then came the discovery that shattered any lingering doubt. Webb's instruments picked up organic signatures trailing in 3i Atlas's wake. At first they seemed ambiguous, perhaps contamination, perhaps background noise, but further analysis revealed flickering patterns consistent with replication. They were not fully formed cells, nor stable DNA chains, but something stranger, scaffolds of life, precursors capable of growth. They might be synthetic, engineered constructs designed to mimic biology, or they might be genuine biological remnants carried across light years. Either way, they behaved as if alive. Two theories emerged.
The first suggested camouflage. Perhaps 3I Atlas had evolved or been designed to mask itself as a comet. By releasing organic material, it could confuse primitive observers into categorizing it as natural, the way octopuses and cuttlefish disguise themselves with color and texture, or viruses hijack host cells to replicate unseen. The second theory was far more profound and far more disturbing. 3I Atlas could be seeding life. The organic signatures might not be camouflage at all, but payload, genetic precursors meant to spark biology wherever they landed. If so, 3I Atlas was not merely an observer, it was a messenger of life itself, spreading the raw code of existence through the galaxy and an act of cosmic panspermia. If this theory is correct, then life on Earth may owe its origin to travelers like 3I Atlas. As 3I Atlas drew closer to the inner solar system, new anomalies compounded the mystery. Magnetometers aboard satellites and deep space probes began recording rhythmic oscillations in local magnetic fields. Unlike the chaotic interference of solar storms, these pulses were deliberate, structured, and repeated in triplets, like a metronome marking time. Stranger still, their intensity grew as 3I Atlas approached, as though it were syncing with the magnetic skeleton of the solar system itself. Some scientists described it as a handshake protocol, the way spacecraft establish secure connections before transmitting data. The unnerving question remained, what was 3I Atlas connecting to? The Earth? The Sun? Or something else lurking unseen among the planets? Archival research soon deepened the mystery. Determined to understand whether 3I Atlas was truly unique, astronomers began combing through decades of historical sky surveys, cross-referencing faint signals with its present-day trajectory. What they uncovered was unsettling. Along the same vector 3I Atlas now traveled, faint anomalies appeared in past records, disturbances logged in 1987, again in 1998, and once more in 2013. Each of these dates corresponded with subtle but inexplicable phenomena, bursts of radio energy that had no terrestrial origin, and gravitational wave signatures that defied categorization. At the time, these anomalies were dismissed as instrument errors, background noise, or unclassified astrophysical events. But viewed in retrospect, they aligned too neatly with 3I Atlas's present path. The implication was staggering. 3I Atlas had not arrived for the first time. It had been here before, perhaps many times. The thought was chilling. What if Earth was never the target? What if our oceans were not the only ones worth visiting? Perhaps 3I Atlas's true interest lay in Europa's under-ice seas or Enceladus's gyrosing vents. Was it a surveyor, sampling these worlds for signs of life? A gardener, seeding them with precursors to biology? Or something more unsettling, an awakener, returning to stir something that had been lying dormant beneath the ice? Humanity had always assumed itself to be the focal point of extraterrestrial interest, but perhaps we were only an afterthought, incidental witnesses to a mission that concerned other, hidden oceans. This possibility reframed the entire narrative. For months, scientists had tried to provoke 3I Atlas to respond, sending signals, analyzing pulses, waiting for communication. But perhaps 3I Atlas was never meant to speak. Its silence may not be a refusal, but its very design. Imagine a probe so advanced, so ancient, that it requires no conversation. Instead of transmitting, it only listens, recording every photon, every radio wave, every magnetic ripple. A perfect observer, woven into the fabric of the cosmos like an unblinking eye. If 3I Atlas had been here before, if it had passed through this system many times over countless centuries, then its data may already have been gathered and sent. The pressing question was no longer what it was learning, but to whom that knowledge was delivered. Somewhere out there in the dark between stars might exist a civilization receiving detailed reports of our planet, our species, our progress.
The revelations became even more unsettling when researchers at Caltech performed a genomic comparison between 3I Atlas's organic residue and Earth's own biology. To their astonishment, they found echoes, faint but undeniable parallels. The residue did not contain fully formed DNA or proteins, but its patterns bore resemblance to structures embedded deep in Earth's genetic history. They mirrored repeating motifs found in viruses, in transposable elements that copy and paste themselves within genomes, and in fragments of so-called junk DNA that had lingered in our species for millions of years. These were not direct matches, but structural rhymes, as though drawn from the same universal template. From this arose a terrifying and exhilarating hypothesis. 3I Atlas's residue may contain a genetic framework universal enough to seed life across multiple planets. If so, life on Earth might not have arisen by accident of chemistry, but through deliberate, or at least systematic, seeding by entities like 3I Atlas. Panspermia, once dismissed as a fringe idea, suddenly seemed plausible. 3I Atlas, then, is not merely a fragment of rock or a curiosity in the night sky. It is a mirror, reflecting our fears and hopes, our arrogance and humility. It is a question carved in starlight, a challenge hurled across epochs, daring us to understand what it means to be alive in a universe that may already teem with intelligence. Its silence is not ignorance, it is intent. And its looping return suggests that intent has been with us for longer than we ever imagined. We looked into the darkness expecting only stars. Instead, we found a watcher. And whether it is a messenger, a seed bearer, or a sentinel, one thing is certain: it was built with intent. That intent may one day be revealed. Until then, it remains the most haunting truth the universe has ever whispered to us. We are not alone.